Why play Ornn top? Well, he is ridiculously tanky, he scales insanely well, he brings far too much lockdown, and he's one of the best team fighters in the game. However, he is weak in the early game, needing time to scale, and he is reliant on landing skill shots for most of his kit. Ornn has multiple passives. His first passive is he doesn't need to be at the store to buy items. Instead, when he buys items out of the store, if he's not within the store, he simply crafts them himself over 4 seconds. His second passive is he increases his armor, magic resist, and bonus health by 10% from all sources, and this bonus increases each time he upgrades a mythic item, which brings us on to his third passive. He can upgrade mythic items. At level 13 he upgrades his own mythic item, and then for each level up after that he can then upgrade a teammate's mythic item. And his fourth and final passive is his basic attacks against brittle enemies knock them back, as well as doing the usual bonus damage. Ornn's Q is a straight line skill shot which deals damage to enemies hit and slows them. When this hits maximum range, it then erupts, bringing forth a pillar, which if created underneath enemy champions will knock them aside. Ornn's W causes him to slowly start moving forward, gaining CC immunity. Over this time he deals damage in a cone in front of him, and the final bit of flame will apply brittle for 3 seconds, and targets affected with brittle have their tenacity reduced. Ornn's E is a straight line wide skill shot which causes him to charge in a direction, dealing damage to enemies he passes through, and this will stop if he collides with terrain, and upon colliding with terrain he then knocks up and stuns nearby enemies. This ability can also be used to destroy the terrain created by his Q, and any terrain created by enemy champions. Ornn's ultimate calls forth a giant ram towards him which deals damage in a long rectangle, as well as slowing enemies it passes through. Ornn can then recast this ability on the ram to send the ram in a different direction, which will deal damage to, knock up and stun enemies hit, and each enemy this passes through are applied brittle. For combos, start Q into your ultimate and E. After this, ult again into an auto attack before using a W into an auto attack for insane amounts of damage. For matchups, Ornn does great into a lot of lane bullies, who will never be able to do enough to stop him from scaling incredibly well. However, he can struggle against champions who are particularly good at killing tanks. For runes, take this. Grasp makes your laning so much easier. For build order, start Shield and Pot into a Sunfire and tier 2 boots. After this, a Jackshare and Thornmail are great pickups before finishing your build with any of these as needed. For skill order, start Q then W then E before maxing W then Q then E, taking ult whenever you can. For summoner spells, take Flash and Teleport. Starting the game, you're looking to scale into a late game beast, and the way you do this is by focusing on farming and taking good trades while poking where you can. When poking, if you can ever land your Q while pushing the wave, go for it. And after landing this, it can be a great window to go in for a trade, where if you can follow up with your E into a W and auto attack, it's simply tons of damage and lockdown. And when you hit level 6, you now have even more damage, even more engage, and even more CC. So especially if your jungler is looking for a gank, look for the kill. Entering the mid game, you want to take your tower as soon as possible. From here, push your wave out as fast as you can safely before grouping up with your team for team fights and objectives. Especially after getting a few items, Ornn is incredibly tanky and simply wants to be fighting. Entering late game team fights, you want to play the front line. You bring great engage with your ultimate, Q and E, so if you get a good opportunity, knock up their entire team. After this, use your abilities on anything going for your backline, and with your tankiness absorb their cooldowns and damage.